Hey everybody, this is Way to Fail, back with more Kerbal Space Program as we're continuing our mission to Jool, and we are looking at the Mothership today. This is going to be the first test launch. You can see Aldo Kerman in the pilot seat, and we're just going to be launching this ship. Right now this is a test flight. Nothing is on its way to Jool at this point. We're still going through the iterations. Last episode was getting the Lathe lander down, and while it wasn't doing perfectly in the Kerbal atmosphere, you got to remember that some of the aspects of Lathe's atmosphere are different. It's shorter, it's slightly more dense, but you don't have to push nearly as hard to get through. Lathe does not have nearly as high gravity, at least as far as the Kerbal Space Center knows, because as I mentioned previously, and if you look at some of the item descriptions in the map mode, you'll see that they're very good at pointing at telescopes at things and looking, but they don't necessarily know properties. Of course, you can tell plenty about planets and their masses and relative things like that just by looking at how they orbit, how they interact with other orbits, and all kinds of mathematical things that honestly are not my specialty. But there's plenty to know about, plenty of people who can tell you about them. But right now this launch is going a little slower than I'd like. I do have a lot of mass in the fuel tanks, but right away you can see that while it's not going so great, there does seem to be a problem. Specifically, one of the fuel tanks in my next stage is emptying a lot faster than the other one, and I am not entirely sure what that's about. Yeah, you can see that right there on top of stage 5, where I started to do this, and it's almost like a ghost in the machine, because I'd previously tested this lifter not with double stacks of giant fuel tanks, but it should be working. But right now, and I'm looking around here just trying to see, are the fuel lines intact? Are the fuel lines intact? And it looks like all the fuel lines are there, but for some reason it doesn't seem to work out so well. So go back to the drawing board, go back to struts. If there's anything that's ever wrong, something looks like it's breaking, my solution is add more struts. So we're doing time acceleration here just for constructing. I also add some side launch thingies, whatever you want to call them, just to try and stabilize the launch in general. It's not perfect, but you got to move your staging around. I have all those going at the same time so that it'll release and launch, refill up the crew. Plenty here. Like I said, this is test flight the second for the Mothership. I mean, you got to get off the ground to even get to Jool, but this is why we test instead of say, here we go. Now, once again, if this were the career mode from the next patch, this would be an expensive launch and a pretty damn expensive test. But, you know, I mean, that's testing and stuff's got to be in your budget. You just can't use computer models, not even in a computer game. So here we go. So far, struts look like they are doing their job as the 3 crew that are there, and it's nice that you can scroll through your crew on the bottom right if you do want to test them. So far, things look good. So far, the fuel levels look okay. They seem okay. It's going to be hard to tell until a little bit later, but another detachment. There we go, and this is this is pretty much straight up asparagus staging. And if you're wondering why the nav ball is orange right now, it's because it's currently being controlled from the lander can that's pointing down. It's not perfect. I can technically right-click on the command module in the center and control it from up there, but it's not a big deal. I'll just do my gravity turn at 270 degrees instead of 90 degrees. But right now I get a little bit of a tilt. That tends to happen. Release the next stage, and so far, things are still going all right. Look through the rest of my crew. Frito's okay, and Mid's okay. And you can look at most of the crew in the modules here. I'm not sure if you can actually see the faces of the crew in the science module, but still, things are going. And we are looking to be in decent shape, at least for a test run. Now, I've built this to hopefully get up into orbit, but right now, considering we've gone through so many cans, and we're not even at 10,000, I am not confident in this design's ability to make it into orbit. I mean, I put struts on, it's stable, it doesn't look like it's dumping fuel, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to have the lift necessary to get this monstrosity up. So, well, that's, once again, that's why you test. You can only do so much with computer models, but for this design to work, I need to have the Mothership up there with as close to full fuel as possible. So go ahead and get up here, at least try and see how high I can go. But that I've already dumped so many cans that I'm just barely getting through the lower atmosphere now. Up on my gravity turn, and the reason that I don't do it at 10,000 is because I want to have my gravity turn not push through as much air. Not to mention this is not the most stable of boats or beasts. But there we go, once again, only 17. I have a shot, there is hope. As all my Kerbans are panicking a little bit. I'm putting my, I guess the XCOM equivalent of squatties in there, and damn, look at that again. you can see right away under stage 5, I'm having fuel problems again. Once again, this same part of the stage, for some reason, there's a fuel line that just does not seem to want to work. So while I'm only getting up to 22,000 meters, which is not good, some reason, even adding all of those struts, there's just something wrong with the stability of this craft, and somehow, some way, and I really should have hit F3 through here to see what separated at what time. It looks like, well, let's see here, going to continue to burn and see what happens. Unfortunately, one engine's going to cut out, and that's going to really tilt the ship. We are currently on course fucked up. Okay, so we are now pointing back down to the ground. This is not making it to orbit. This is what you get for going to Kerbal Space School. I'm going to detach as many things as possible in phase, but stage, and that's my rockets pointing in both directions. We're going to call that an aborted launch, but fortunately nothing exploded, so looks like everyone will be able to recover okay. Did I mention this project's going over budget? Even though there's an imaginary budget, if there were a budget, there would be a lot of people questioning what's happening, because we continue to launch rockets that just don't seem to work very well. So you can see that I've added some more fuel tanks. Like I said before, I've added more fuel tanks, and we're just trying to see if we can get things stabilized. More fuel tanks, more struts, those tend to be the way to go. But right away, even compared to last time, just already one rocket, just one fuel line is not working. You can see a big lurch there, so that's another aborted launch. And since no crew died, and it's pretty easy to get that all, I don't consider it cheating, things like that. I do want to try and do this to where if people die, they actually die. But when it's buggy things like this, I don't know. I can't just justify saying, hey, I'm killing all of my crew all the time, because I don't know if the Kerbal Space Center repopulates its crew immediately. So here's another launch. Do you see a theme to this episode yet? The mothership, we just got to get it off the ground. Got to get it into space. This is going to be one of the first possible episodes in a while where it's been a good chunk of time and I have not even made it into space yet. So let's hear more struts. Are things stable? And I went through and I double-checked every single fuel line. The connections are there as they should be. I put extra struts on there to try and keep it stable. So far, you look at all the fuel tanks, it looks like things are okay. And it seems like it's still working like it should. The velocity's okay enough. I mean, it's not perfect. I still am not confident in the ship's ability to get out of the atmosphere yet, but I'd at least like to have a good test first, because when I tested this in 0.22, if you saw from the first old footage video, I was actually able to get into orbit. I was able to get into orbit without a little bit of problem, but adding the extra science module on the lander, it has forced me to add some extra fuel tanks, add some extra weight, and for some reason this ship is just having trouble compensating. As you can see, I'm even having trouble keeping it in a stable upward direction right now. And I don't know if that shaking is somehow affecting the bottom fuel lines or connections or something, because you can see right there that the fuel tanks are shaking a little bit, even though they shouldn't be because they're strutted all to hell. But right now things are still holding up okay. So just going to keep going. Once again, my brave crew, just how many launches are they going to have? They're all desperate to go to space. This is their first shot. They want to show, hey, can we be the people that actually gets to go to Jool? I have flown a few things with Aldo in the past, but a lot of these other people are new. So here we go again. Gravity turn. Once again, I do it a little bit higher in the atmosphere to try and get more out of my engines. But there we go. You can see Minmus poking its head in the background there. I'm for some reason really good at spotting Minmus in the sky. But with the new Skybox mod, it is a little bit harder to spot Minmus, even though space doesn't show up until you actually get into higher parts of the atmosphere or the night sky. But yeah, this is still pre-mod, so you're not seeing clouds, you're not seeing the Skybox. I told you the first few episodes are going to have some of the old stuff. Now, do I have any gameplay mods installed on this? No, not at this time. No deadly reentry, no career mode modifiers. I do have a few things actually installed. Like if you've seen my build pane, you may see some stuff for Flight Engineer, but I can't actually use it in career mode because I don't have any tech tree modifications that let me drop it on my ship. So I am kind of building all these ships a little bit blind. I have an idea of where their thrust should go, but that's one reason that we're actually testing here, and you can see I'm actually getting up into space, and I think the fuel tanks are going to stay okay. I think this time we're not going to have fuel line problems, so that's a good start. It looks relatively balanced, and we're still pushing our apoapsis away. This could be the time. It's going to be a little bit close about whether we can actually get into space, because this isn't like the lander that just needs to get off of Lathe. This launch mechanism needs to work and needs to get this mothership up in the sky, and whether there needs to be an orbital rendezvous with my space station, who knows. But oh, damn it, I thought things were okay, but look at this. What's the fuel tanks doing? I think they are out of sync again. So just checking to see, and notice I can't right click on that one. It's debris. It somehow, some way got detached. I mean, that's not even a fuel line issue. I have struts all up and down these tanks, all trying to attach them to one another. And for some reason, one of the jumbo Rockamax tanks just got detached off the top. I don't even know what you're supposed to do with that. I know this game gets a little bit crazy once you get to really, really high part amounts, and right now I am at about, let's see here, about 600 parts on the ship, but so many of those are struts. I mean, it's just, I strut the crap out of this thing. So here we go. We're actually into high orbit. Or not high orbit, we're reaching out of the atmosphere. And shit. That's what you do when you decouple a stage and there's a rocket that's still going. Yeah, we just lost half of our crew. Whoever's in the lander can magically still survived. I don't know about all those free-falling debris. It looks like there's the mothership, so some of it's still intact. Is it going to survive impact? Did the parachute survive? I don't know, but there we go. You can see the lander can's going to be going in a different direction than everything else, and that's just from these people are able to burn away from the debris a little bit, so Greg Vuss and Aldo still kicking. And so there we go. There's not much left. It's just, here's the Julian mothership, and so far, you know, I would call this kind of a failure of an episode. And I don't mind showing you that. I know a lot of people will do Kerbal Space Program stuff, people that are way better at this game than I am. But I mean, part of the fun of the game to me is just learning. You have these failures, and you measure the success of what you have by the struggle that you made through those failures. So I don't mind that at all. Unfortunately, it's also a pain in the butt to get these struts to actually move, because I don't really want a strut connected to my nuclear engine. So there we go. Oh, screwed up that. Alright, so this is what's going to happen here. I'm going to have to rework on the mothership a little bit and see if I can get some iteration that works, because right now, the way I've built it, I've gotten this payload to work in the past. Not necessarily with 14 Rockamax boosters attached to it, but I've gotten it to work. But, I mean, it could just be that I wanted to have one gigantic stage that actually go up into space, and maybe I'll get there. It could also be that I have to kind of take away my 0.22 design that I've been holding on to and go back to it and say, you know what, screw it, let's redesign this from the ground up and try and build something that's not going to break the game during launch, because right now, for some reason, this rocket just is somehow not agreeing with the physics engine. But that's okay. Like I said, I don't mind showing failures. I'd rather you all see the process instead of me just simply going, woohoo, spike the football, success. That was easy, why can't you do it? So there we go. Struts on everything, even more struts. This is going to bloat the part total even more, but I just don't want these rockets to detach. And right now that one just has a detachment problem for whatever reason. It probably happens when I accelerate in the gravity turn. That's when this ship is under a lot of stress. But, you know, for now, that's it. This is Way to Fail with a little more harrowing episode of Mothership Jool, where we have unfortunately lost some of our rookie Kerbals. So you gotta look at the project like this. We have loss of income, loss of ships, loss of life. It's almost like the Kerbal Space Program trifecta. So right now, there's nothing in this game that penalizes me for that. In the future, there might be. But at least for today, we're going to call this an episode. If you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. Take a moment of silence if you need to for our lost crew, because at least from my understanding, and looking at some of the video footage, again, there was no parachute survival, nothing else. One rocket just went through the Science Center and detached everything else. Mess. Messy, messy. But that's it for now. This is Way to Fail. I will see you all next time with more Kerbal Space Program, or maybe next episode we'll take this behemoth to space. Take care.